This woman here, if you'll notice, she'll look into the camera in a second, and I think, yeah, see, like there, and I think that suggests that Olmi probably just put the actors on the street and directed them to.
So you think in a way that kind of underscores the authenticity of this moment, just because the fictionalness is sort of.
I think it calls attention to the unreality of it, quite frankly.
Really?
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, certainly it does underscore somewhat of the authenticity. I guess I can see that, but the way Olmi films it, like even right here with the
through the windows,
through the windows, and
like
stuff,
this fly on the wall effect.
It's kind of like what I think it was the Hitchcock axiom. He like saw an image in a film of like a camera in a fireplace, and he was like, "How the hell did a camera get in there?" It didn't make sense to him in a way, and it doesn't always make sense in every kind of aspect. But here, I think it adds to the dreamlike quality of things. I mean, shooting through the glass, it's like there's different layers of reflections that you get. Everything.
Well, I think the effect that represents is this aspiring to these automobiles and the symbols of luxury and affluence that they represent. I mean, the conversations that they're having in this whole sequence are almost entirely about the jobs they're going for, the material possessions they want.
And what is interesting, just to interrupt, sorry, but the camera is on the side of the appliances. It's from the perspective of the appliances in this scene, as it's sort of opposed to the perspective of. Right,
they're always looking at. Yeah, we're looking out at them, looking in.
Exactly.
Always, yeah.
So who's contemplating who? I mean, then is Olmi putting us in the position of the consumer goods? Essentially, I mean, do we give life to the consumer goods? Is that sort of the unspoken subtext here or whatever? And does that sort of like alienate us in a way to kind of make us want to rejoin this couple, or does it actually bring us closer to the couple in a way? Because by being in the perspective of the inanimate, then suddenly we're looking at the animate, and we kind of want to be on that side.
Right. Well, I think it's sort of like the inverse of them wanting to possess the objects. We want to possess these two characters in a way. Our gaze through the window, renders them as objects that we are attracted to. I think we feel a certain degree of I don't know. I don't want to say superiority, but these are two kids who are just fresh to the world. We feel maybe wiser or more knowing than they are, and look at the way they awkwardly, handle their espresso cups, which.
Yeah, and I guess I should say that we're sort of talking from our own perspective here. I don't think Olmi is looking down on these people at all. I mean, I think he probably understands where they are. But I don't get the sense that he is saying they are necessarily removed.
It depends on how you define, looking down, because I'm sure that this is some kind of, autobiographical version of Olmi, in his youth. Yeah. Just, entering the bureaucracy and not knowing just how, what kind of effect it would have on him.
I just have to point out, she's going to put the spoon in her mouth. Oh, I love that. That's so wonderful.
I know, there's a lot of these little touches. I love the stains on the sides of the cups. It just shows how, how
and now see, this is where he actually cuts in intimately to the point where they sip the coffee.
Yeah, it really creates this kind of rapport between them, the matching shots, the matching... Visually, there's there are two interesting things going on here. First of all, the foreground and background, you can see through rows of people, several rows back, and that really speaks to this something that you see consistently through this film. Really good use of staging and composition on Olmi's part.
Yes, and also of character trait, I would say. I mean, you can see here, like when the writer was hunched over his desk, the 20-year veteran here who, has the problem with his light bulb and everything, and who kind of ruse the curse of his life, basically. And everybody just sort of seems a caricature in this moment. Right. And what's wonderful about the sequence is that you get a sense of the caricature, and then Olmi takes you a little bit deeper into some of these people's lives, and so you get a sense of the of the office workers,
right?
And
it's worth
outside
thinking.
of the office.
Yeah, it's worth thinking whether or not Olmi really sets you up that way. In that, the mannerisms and the behavior of these people at first seem kind of, in some way, a little cliched. Just these rather common office foibles, these petty annoyances, and then somehow it elides into this scene that we'll see in just a few moments.
Yeah.
Just a real poignancy of these characters as individuals.
Right. And does this add to the character of Domenico? I think it really does, and you sort of don't realize that it does until the end. It gives you a sense of the many different facets that his life, or many different pathways, that his life could take, from this point on, getting us into the first of the flashbacks.
You notice that transition was really, really, really brilliant. Actually, it starts with those two characters gossiping about this one.
Yes.
And then it actually transitions to that character in his own private life.
Yes.
So we can actually break through the gossip.
Yes.
The gossip layer of understanding people.
Right. Exactly. And and it just sort of points out like. He's in a sense an observer too, also being observed by this,
right.
This woman who we assume,
right.
I think, is his landlady.
In his act of observing, his act of looking out the window, it resonates with some moments that we see of Domenico,
right.
The way he looks at other people, and this pining, longing quality in his gaze.
Yeah.
One thing I want to say about that montage of life outside the office is that.
Right.
It's interesting how little you can find out in those scenes, because there's a lot of mystery in those moments, especially with the mother and her son and the that guy who seems to be with that woman for some illicit reason.
Yes.
It's like you can't really get that far into understanding what's going on in their lives, and that suggests a lot of mystery to people's lives. That these scenes in the office, seem counterpoised against here everything is cut and dry, and you feel like you can know somebody in just a moment, just looking at somebody. You've got them pegged, and so that's a very interesting contrast to me.
And basically, in a sense, we are in the perspective of the gossips at first,
mm-hmm.
And Olmi takes us from the gossip through the quote unquote reality, and then brings us back to the gossip.